So basically, this is what went down. In Tati's video, she said that she was absolutely grossed out by James's treatment of me, a waiter, in a restaurant in Seattle. And now, I want to give you my take on what happened and share all the messages that passed between James and me, so you get the full story. To give you an idea of how this happened, James came to the restaurant that I was waiting in along with approximately 32 other individuals. The restaurant was somewhat upscale, and we were all there to celebrate Tati's birthday party. Tati and her husband came in early to set up a table for everyone to sit around, and we knew that this was going to be something special. As the night continued, I realized that some people in the group, and James in particular, were staring at me. He was regularly glancing at me, and this was enough to get my attention and make it apparent. Soon, he began conversing with other members of the staff about me. This is Valentine's Day, and the context only adds more humor to the situation. He was inquiring about me and other servers in the group as to whether or not I had a Valentine and that he found me very attractive. He also tried to get my phone number. But the staff didn't let this happen either. Nobody gave him my details, and eventually the crowd dispersed. After this, the entire situation seemed to fall into the background. There was no confrontation, no follow-through, at least not yet. The next day, my sister told me to send him a direct message, and to be honest, I thought, why not? So I went ahead and messaged him. We could post the screenshots of the messages later on this page, but I messaged him, LOL, it's Sam, the busser from John Howie. That is the restaurant that I had worked at. He messaged back instantly with, OMG. I messaged him back with, LOL. He asked me how I was, followed by an apology for what happened the night before. He said I was very pretty. I told him it was all good, since honestly it was flattering. He said, love that, then proceeded on with the discussion. But this is where things begin to take a rather more serious turn. In Tati's video, she explained how she was appalled by how James was treating me, and even how he was treating our waiter at a restaurant in Seattle. This is what led me to at last share my account of what happened, and let me be very specific here. I'm about to take you through exactly what happened between me and James through direct messages, so there's no confusion. It began when James arrived at the upscale restaurant that I was working in with approximately 32 other people. Eventually, it turned out that they were there for Tati's birthday party. Tati and her husband arrived rather early, and they assisted in arranging that long table, so the restaurant knew that these people were coming. It all seemed normal. However, once they sat down, I quickly noticed something. James, and a few others actually, kept looking at me. James, especially. It was not subtle. Later on in the night, he began chatting with some of the staff members about me. It was Valentine's Day, and he was wondering if I had a Valentine, if I was single, and saying how attractive he thought I was. He asked for my phone number, but the staff shut that down, and that was the end of that for that night. They all ended up going home, and the incident was just pushed aside. The next day, my sister told me that I should go on and send him a direct message. So I did. I sent him the following message or something similar. LOL, it's Sam, the busser from John Howie, which was the name of the restaurant that we happened to work at. He instantly messaged me back and said, OMG. We messaged each other for a little while, and then he apologized for the night before and told me once again that he found me very attractive. One point he made was that he didn't know I was 19, then realized that he was too. We chatted for a bit longer since it was his last night in Seattle, so he asked me to come to his hotel. At that point, I was bi-curious. It was my first time being around anyone of my own sex for, say whatever. It was first experimentation for me. So later that night, I went to the hotel. In his video, he said I came up to the room with 4 security guards, but this isn't true. It was only 1 concierge. After I arrived in the room, everything seemed fine. We said hello to each other and sat down and wound up watching a movie with each other. After the movie finished playing, he wanted to give me a kiss. This made me nervous since I'd never kissed a man before, but I agreed anyway. We made out for about an hour, but if I'm completely honest, he actually became the worst kisser I have ever kissed. Too much tongue. I mean, I know tongues are a major component of kissing, and it's totally a turn-on, but this guy, I'm talking too much. But seriously, when it finally came time for me to leave, he didn't want me to leave. We kept in contact for the next few weeks. My birthday was on the 22nd, and he asked me to come out to Los Angeles. This is where I began to get pretty uncomfortable. By then, I was pretty sure that I was straight. The last thing that I wanted was to have him come pick me up from the airport. I let him know that I was straight and that I didn't feel like it would be appropriate for him to come pick me up from the airport, since I wasn't attracted to him. I told him that I was willing to meet him and be friends. He turned down that offer and also canceled the flight. But after that incident, he started becoming very emotional. He was in a very disturbed mood and took to social media. This is when his reaction to me changed. Well, let me take you through this scenario by way of a hopefully consistent and concise retelling of the facts. So basically, what Tati was saying in her video is she was very upset about how James was treating me, as well as the waiter at a restaurant in Seattle. Now, I want to share what I experienced, what exactly went down, and the actual communication that went from me to James. It all began with the arrival of James at the restaurant where I was working in. He came with a total of about 32 other individuals. The group was there for a birthday celebration for Tati. The group arrived early with Tati and her husband to set up the long table. Even since they got there, it seemed like, even in a one-on-one situation which I was with them in,
back in my room alone, since I was alone there, of course. I was talking to them in my room alone. There was something odd. James's group of friends kept glancing in my direction. I mean, I'm talking seriously. Other staff members even noticed. Later that night, remember, this was Valentine's Day, James began to ask some of the staff members about me. He was curious if I had a Valentine, if I was available, and made comments about how attractive he found me. He asked for my phone number too, but this was not shared with me, of course, and nothing came of it that night. Eventually, he left, and this whole ordeal just kind of died out into silence. The next day, my sister persuaded me to send a direct message to James. I was a little uncertain, so I ended up sending him a message like, "LOL, it's Sam, the busser from John Howie." That's the restaurant where I was working at the time. "OMG," he responded instantly. I talked briefly with him, and he asked how I was. Then he apologized for the events of the previous night, and told me again how much he thought I was attractive. I told him it was all cool, and that it was kind of flattering, actually. It was at this point that he said something that struck me as important at the time. He said he didn't realize that I was 19, then followed that up by saying he was 19 himself. We kept conversing for a short while longer. It was his last night in Seattle, and eventually he invited me to meet him at his hotel. At this stage of my life, I was bi-curious. This was the first and only time in my life where I would ever venture out with another male, and to be honest with you, I just wanted to give it a try out of curiosity. Later that night, I went to his hotel. In his video, James said that I had been escorted up by 4 security guards. That's wrong. It was just the concierge. Once I arrived in his hotel room, all seemed well. We said hello to each other, had a few chats, and ended up watching a film. The next thing was that he asked if he could kiss me after the movie. I was really nervous. Like I said, I had never done anything with a guy before, but I agreed. We proceeded to make out for about an hour. Now, I'm just gonna come clean here. He was one of the worst kissers that I have kissed. He used way too much tongue. A little bit awkward, yes, but that's not what matters. When the time came for me to leave, he didn't want me to leave. He kept on asking me to stay. "Please stay, don't leave," were the phrases he used repeatedly. I knew I wanted to go home. I left. For the next few weeks, we kept in touch. My birthday was looming on the 22nd, and he offered to fly me out to Los Angeles for the weekend, but things began to feel overwhelming them too. At this point, I was pretty sure that I was straight. I sent him a lengthy message telling him exactly how I felt. I told him that I was straight and that if he ended up inviting me out because he wanted something romantic to happen between us, it wouldn't sit well with me since I wasn't interested in that way. I also told him that if he wanted to invite me out as friends, it could work out. He declined and canceled the flight. After that, he became emotionally distraught and took to social media sites. In private communications, he messaged me saying he didn't think I was straight. "You're not straight," he told me flat out, and I will display them now from where I saved them. We stopped communicating for a short period after that. Then he started a conversation about needing closure. In that conversation, he once again offered to fly me out to LA. I refused. I didn't want to be taken advantage of because of what he had. It just didn't feel right. Everyone in my circle was telling me the same thing. Even after that, he continued to insist on me being bisexual or gay, and that I was attracted to him, despite me stating that clearly wasn't the case. This is how things continued for a considerable period, until finally I told him in no uncertain terms that I was not feeling anything, and that he needed to stop bothering me. In one of the screenshots, you can see him messaging me about how I supposedly felt. Thankfully, I had saved those messages, because later on, he unsent all those messages that he said. Those messages are no longer in that conversation, but those messages did exist. What made things worse was the realization that followed that he was talking to Gage at the same time that he was talking to me. I didn't find this out until Gage decided to release a video of his own about what happened with him and James. At that point, the icing was definitely the cake for me, and I was through with him once and for all, because the last thing that I needed was for him to emotionally manipulate 2 straight men at once. There's even FaceTime video of him admitting that he was talking to both of us at the same time. I do want to make one thing clear. I made this video not for views or fame. I truly could care less about that stuff. I just think it is important for me to share my perspective at this point in time, since others are speaking out, and I want people to have a better sense of the full story. Thank you for taking the time to hear me out. This is Sam, and that's my story. So, basically what Tati was saying in her video is she was very upset about the behavior of James towards me, a waiter in a restaurant in Seattle. Therefore, I would like to share my side of the story in a calm and detailed manner, covering events that took place in person as well as in direct messages between me and James. It all began when James came to this upmarket restaurant where I used to work, together with approximately 32 guests in total. They were there for Tati's birthday party. They came early with Tati setting up a big table, so they had warned us in advance that they were a special group. From the time they arrived, I have noticed that there is something odd. There are people in the group staring at me, and James is one of them. His stare is very noticeable. He proceeds to talk about me with other workers. This is on Valentine's Day, and he asks the workers if I have a Valentine or if I am single, and how attractive he thinks I am. He asks for my phone number too. The staff members intervened and did not allow that to take place either. Later the group left and the matter was not brought up again, at least not that night. The day that followed, my sister asked me to send a direct message on Instagram to James. I did. We greeted each other. I introduced myself by mentioning the restaurant that I worked in. He immediately apologized for the actions that happened the previous night. He said that he finds me quite attractive. I found it flattering. Somewhere in this conversation, he found out I was 19. He claimed to be the same age. We continued conversing, and since this was his last night in Seattle, he invited me to go to his hotel. In those days, I identified as bi-curious. This was my first time with a man, and I did not quite comprehend my own identity yet. So later that night, I went to his hotel. In his video, James said that I had been escorted up by 4 security guards. That's wrong. It was just the concierge. Once I arrived in his hotel room, all seemed well. We said hello to each other, had a few chats, and ended up watching a film. The next thing was that he asked if he could kiss me after the movie. I was really nervous. Like I said, I had never done anything with Elaine before, but I agreed. We proceeded to make out for about an hour. Now, I'm just going to come clean here. He was one of the worst kissers that I have kissed. He used way too much tongue. A little bit awkward, yes, but that's not what matters. When the time came for me to leave, he didn't want me to leave. He kept on asking me to stay. Please stay, don't leave, were the phrases he used repeatedly. I knew I wanted to go home. I left. For the next few weeks, we kept in touch. My birthday was looming on the 22nd, and he offered to fly me out to LA for the weekend. But things began to feel overwhelming then too. At this point, I was fairly sure that I was straight. I sent him a lengthy message telling him exactly how I felt. I told him that I was straight and that if he ended up inviting me out because he wanted something romantic to happen between us, it wouldn't sit well with me since I wasn't interested in that way. I also told him that if he wanted to invite me out as friends, it could work out. He declined and canceled the flight. After that, his demeanor altered. He became emotional and expressed those emotions via social media sites. Also, he told me that he didn't even think I was straight. He told me point